Hello everyone, welcome to this section. In this section, we're going to talk about structures. So what are these structures in C++? Structures in general are used to group related variables under one type, making our code more organized and easier to manage. For example, instead of using separated variables for related data, we can basically use a structure to bundle them together, and it helps us to simplify handling multiple related variables. It helps to make our code easier to understand, and we can define a structure once and reuse it multiple times. So let me give you an example. Now we would like to declare and initialize a structure. We would like to write a program that demonstrates creating and initializing a structure. In order to do that, we are having this example here with us. So basically here, we are having one main function and our structure is here, and these are our headers in the C++. So in order to declare and have the structure in our code, we use the struct keyword, and then we are going to give it a name. So the name of this structure is person. And in this structure in here, we are having three elements: one string that is called name, one integer that is called age, and one float that is called salary. So in this structure that is called person, the name of the structure is person, we are having three variables, and each of these variables are going to handle related variables that are bundled together in this structure. First, we are going to talk about the people, and then their age, and then their salary. So now the structure is here created. We are declaring the structure here. And in the int main function, we would like to initialize the structure. So we would like to insert some data in this structure. To do that, we are having the p1. This is the name that we choose ourselves. For example, the first person. And then it is of the structure data type. So we are basically writing down the name of the structure and the name of the variable for initialization for the person, corresponding person. Okay. And after that, we are having a brace here, a bracket here. Then we are going to insert the data. For the first one, because it's a string, it's in the quotation. So John Doe is the name, the first element of the structure. Then it is separated from the second element using a comma. In the second part, we are having the age, which is 30, and it's of integer type here. And then it is separated from the third element by a comma, and as the third element, we are having the salary, which is here in the structure. And then in order to, so basically this is how we are initializing the structure. And then we are having these initialized data being printed. So if we would like to access the data that we initialized, we can see out name and p1 dot name. So p1 is the first person, and then dot name is going to print out the first element of the structure corresponding to the first person. Then p1.age, p1.salary, p1.any element. Basically, this is the rule. So let me run the code. So when I run the code, we see the prints here: name John Doe, age 30, and salary is this amount, 50,000. So basically in this video, we learned how to declare a structure. We are going to use the keyword struct and then give our structure a name. In this case, I call it person. Then in the bracket here, in the braces, we are going to have the elements of the structure. We are having one string, one integer, and one float, and each of them are going to store certain amount of data, certain data type. in order to initialize a structure, we are going to use the name of the structure and then the variable name. For example, previously we were having like int a equals 10, for example. So we were having a variable called a from the integer data type, okay? And 10 was assigned to a. Now we are having the variable name called p1, similar to a, but it's not of integer type. P1 is not at integer type, it's of person type, which is the structure name. Then it equals the certain elements of the structure that are name, age, and salary. So the name is in the quotation mark because it's a string, then the age, and then the salary. Okay, so in order, for example, if we would like to have another initialization, because we mentioned that one of the benefits of a structure is that we can declare it once and we can use it, reuse it multiple times. We can have, for example, person p2 equals, then here we can have the new data. For example, the name is Reza Shahin and it's in the quotation because it's a string. The age, for example, we can say whatever. For example, we can say 33, and the salary we can say 10,000, for example. Okay, and this is how I initialized another element for this structure. So now this structure is storing two data, here for P1 and here for P2. So basically we are having one structure, but we can store many data in this structure. This is one of the benefits. So you don't have to, and all the data is gathered in one structure, so you can easily access it. As you see, it is very organized. So you don't have to declare your data unorganized throughout your code, but you can store it in the certain data that are related together. You can store it in a specific structure, for example, the name, the age, the salary of your employees, for example, then access them easily. And also you can have a structure for many different things, for the amount of sale in 2024, for example, in 2025, and you can have the branches, the different stores data, whatever you want. You can store it in one structure. For example, you can have a structure of your sales in 2024, and the elements could be the different branches, for example, different products, different months. So you can store the data of different branches for different products in different months, easily stored in one structure. So now I initialize the second element, the second person for this structure called person. Now if I want to print it out, I could say name, for example. Then instead of here, we wanted to access the name of the first person. Now I want to access the name of the second person. So I would type down p2.name, then endel. Then I see out age 2 and person 2, name person 1, age person 2, sorry. Then sorry, okay. Then I have p2.age and del. Then I am having cout salary person 2, p2.salary, then and del. Okay, so now I'm going to print out the second person data as well. So you see here, first the data of the first person is printed here until here, John Doe, age 30, and the salary is 50,000. Then we are having the name of the person too, Reza Shahin, age, and the salary, and we are printing out the data. So it is very useful to store data, different data types that are related, and we can bundle them together to have a very good place to store all the related data together in one unique structure. Thank you for watching. In the following videos, we are going to discuss further coding exercises with the structure. Thank you. Hi, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to talk about nested structures. So we would like to write a program that uses a nested structure to provide more details of one instance address. Here, let me start going through the details. We are having the first structure called address, and it is having three variables, three elements. Their names are city, state, and zip, and the first two are strings, and the last one is of integer data type. Then we are having the second structure called person, and it is having the first variable being a string, the second variable being an integer, and the third variable being of the structure address, and this address is the first structure. So this ADDR is going to be a nested structure, meaning that in this part we need to include all these three information. Okay, so let me illustrate it using an example. We are initializing the first instance for the person structure. The first one is the name, so the name is here, John Doe is written. The second part is age, and we are having 30, and then we are having the ADDR, which is of type address, which is another structure. Therefore, we need to have three information part, three elements in the ADDR. To do that, we open a new bracket here, okay? And in the new bracket, the first element of ADDR is city, the second element is the state, and the third element is zip code. And basically the first and second elements are string. This is why we are having the code sign here and here and here and here. So let me go through it one more time. So we are having an instance being initialized of type person, the structure here. So it is going to have three parts. So the first part is the name, which is this part. The second part is the age, which is this part. But the third part is having three subparts, let's say. Why? Because the ADDR is not a string or an integer, etc. It's of address data type, and address itself is a structure. And in this structure, we are having three elements. Therefore, if when ADDR is of this structure data type, it is going to have three elements or three sub-elements, let's say. So these three sub-elements are here in the brackets shown, and each part is separated by a comma. So the first part, which is the city, is the New York. The second part is the state, which is NY, and the last part, which is zip code, is this number. So we learned how to initialize and declare a nested loop here. Then we are going to learn how to print out the information separately. So in order to access the first instance name, we are having p1.name. The age, we are having p1.age. So these two lines, we already learned about these two lines. However, in order to access the New York, NY, and the zip code here, we need to have this line of code. For example, we need to have p1.addr, which is this part, but because addr includes three subparts, we need to mention which subpart we would like to print. So we have p1.addr.city to print out the New York. We are going to have p1.addr.state and .zip to print out the remaining parts. So in order to make an overview is that when we are having a nested structure, in the normal situation, we are just having p1, the instance name, dot the element name, the variable name. However, when a nested element is included, we are going to have p1, the instance name, dot that variable, which is addr, but because this variable is including three subparts, which are city, state, and zip, we are having the addr.city to mention that, okay, we are going to have the addr city, and then addr.state to have this part being printed, and then .zip to this part being printed. So let me run the code. So when we run the code, we see that the name John Doe, age is 30 being printed, city New York, state NY, and zip is this number being printed. So in this video, we learned how to declare and initialize a nested structure, and also how to access information stored in a nested structure. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In today's video, we are going to learn how to copy an instance of a structure in a new instance. So in order to do that, we are having our structure declared here, and we are having the first instance being initialized here. So P1 is having the name, age, and the salary here. And instead of having the instance 2 being initialized, we can use this line to assign whatever that is in instance 1 to be now in instance 2. So we are copying the data in instance 1 to instance 2. And then we are printing out the instance 1 name, instance 1 age, and instance 1 salary. And then we are copying the name, the age, and the salary of the instance 2 to compare and see if everything has been done correctly or not. So let me first comment this last part of the code and see the result of this part to see if copying has been done correctly or not. Let me run the code. Okay, great. Now we only initialized the first instance, and we assigned the data of the first instance in the second instance. And when we are printing out the instance 1 and instance 2 using these two lines here, we see that the data that is stored in instance 2 is exactly the same data that is stored in instance 1. So we learned how to copy the information of one instance into another. However, what if we would like to have some modification after copying the data in one instance? So for example, now instance 1 is copied to instance 2, and we saw the output and we saw the prints in the terminal, and we saw that they are having the same data, both of the instances. However, now I would like to modify the salary of the instance 2. So in order to do that, we are having p2.salary, and we are assigning number 60,000 to the salary of the instance 2. Then we are printing out the salary of both instances. So here I'm printing out the message saying that after modifying person 2's salary, we will see that the output of the first instance salary and also the second instance salary. So let me run the code. Now up until here, everything is similar. So this is the same thing here. We simply copy paste the data of the instance 1 into instance 2. Then we are modifying the instance 2's salary. We are saying that after modifying the second instance salary, we print out the salary of the instance 1, which remains unchanged because we didn't modify that. However, the salary of the second instance is now 60,000 instead of being 50,000.5. So we see that we can copy paste the data of one instance into another, and then we can manually modify the data in the pasted instance, like the salary in the instance too. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we would like to do the same as we did in the previous video. However, we would like to use pointer to do the same thing for us. So in the previous video, we learned how to modify the salary of the first instance and the second instance using a call by reference and a function. In this video, we are going to learn how to do the same thing. So we are going to modify the salary. However, we are going to do that using a pointer. So we would like to write a program that demonstrates passing a structure using pointers. To do that, we are having the structure here, and we are having the int main function here, and the first instance is initialized exactly here. So, and we are here before incrementing, we are printing out the salary of the first instance, which is 50,000.5, and then we are calling the function. However, the function is a bit different. So this function name is update salary. It's a void type, and it is not going to return anything because it's a void type, and it has two arguments. The second argument is the same thing, so the amount of incremental value that we would like to add is the second argument, and the first argument is a pointer of the structure, and we understand that because we are having one star here. Previously we were having the and sign here when we were having the call by reference, but when we are having the pointer as the argument for this function, we are going to have a star p, which means pointer p, a pointer to the instance p. Okay, so here when I'm calling the function, I'm calling the name of the function, and within parentheses we are having two arguments. The second argument is the 5,000 that we would like to increase this is the amount that we would like to increase the salary, and in the first argument we are passing the address of this first instance. So let me clear it with an example. So for example, here we were having uh, previously when we were having an integer and a pointer pointing at that integer, we were initializing it like this. So we were having a variable called a of integer type, and the value of a equals 10. And when we wanted to declare and initialize a pointer called ptr to this variable a, we were passing the address of this variable a to the pointer ptr. Okay, here we are doing the same thing. So this is our pointer here, and this is the address of the instance one that is being passed as the first argument. So the address of the first instance is being passed here to the pointer of the instance one, and when this has been done, the function basically is going to have the pointer p arrow salary accessing the salary of the instance one because instance one address is passed, and then it is going to increase the already existing amount for the salary by 5,000. So when I call the function, when I run the code, we are basically here seeing that before increment, the salary is 50,000.5, and then we are having the call of the function. We are having it here. We are passing the address of the first instance, and then we are having the pointer here as the first argument, then p pointer p arrow salary plus equal increment. So basically in the previous video we were only passing this part p1, and here instead of a star we were having an and sign here. So it was a call by reference, and here we were not having the arrow, but we were having a dot. So this is how we do it using a call by reference. But when we want to do the same thing using a pointer, we need to have the and sign here when we are passing the argument, because we need to set the address of the instance one. And here we are having the pointer and star here, and we are sending this address to the pointer. And here, instead of having a dot, we are having the arrow, because it's a pointer pointing out the salary of the instance that is passed to this function. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In the previous video, we learned how to declare a pointer pointing at one instance of a structure and then access different elements of that instance using a pointer. In today's video, we would like to write a program that prints information of two different instances in one structure using a pointer. So in order to do that, we are having the declaration of a structure here. The name of the structure is person. It has two variables that are called name and age of a string and integer type respectively. Then we are having an array of this structure that is called people, and the name of the structure is person, so person, and then people, we are having the array of size 2, and we are inserting basically the data of two people there. So we are having two instances being stored in our structure. Why two instances? Because we are having the first instance here and the second instance here. Then we are defining a pointer that is pointing at this array. So this array that is inserting data for our structure, we are pointing at this array. And using this pointer, we can access the data that is stored in this structure, because this array is basically inserting all the data that we want in this structure. So the data that is in the structure is the same as the data in this array. So we are having a pointer defined called PTR pointing at the people array. So in order to access the data of this array using a pointer, when we are declaring the pointer pointing at the people, it is accessing to the first element of the array by default. So the first element is being printed out like this. We are printing out person1, and then using a pointer ptr arrow name and ptr arrow age, we are basically printing out the first element of this array. Why the first element? Because by default, when we are declaring and initializing a pointer pointing at an array, by default it is pointing at the first element. So no effort, we are simply just printing out what already the pointer is pointing to. So it is pointing at the first element. Basically, we can print out the first element using these two lines. And then we are moving the pointer to the next instance. How? We are having the increment here. So we are having the pointer ptr plus plus. So it is now pointing at the second element of that array instead of the first element. And then we are having the second person here. It becomes the second person because we moved the pointer to the next instance in the structure. So then we are having the ptr arrow name and ptr arrow age. One thing that we need to be careful about is the following. So the pointer is pointing out at the people array, but because people array is of the person data type, which is the name of our structure, to access different elements, we need to type down the different variables of the structure. It means that when we are printing out the data for the first person, for example, here we are having the ptr arrow name, ptr arrow age, which are the variables name and age are the variables of the structure person. Why? Because the people array is of the structure data type, and when we are having a pointer pointing at this array, it is basically pointing at the first instance of this structure. When we would like to print out the elements of the first instance of this structure, we need to have the ptr arrow name and ptr arrow age. Okay, and then we move the pointer, and afterwards we have again ptr arrow name, ptr arrow age to access the elements of the second instance that is stored in the person structure. So it is something to keep in mind. It's very important. So basically in this lecture we learned how we are inserting data when we are inserting data to a structure using an array of that structure data type. We can have a pointer pointing at that array and accessing different instances that is stored in the structure itself. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we would like to write a program that demonstrates a pointer to one instance of a structure. To do that, we are having our structure here declared. And then we are initializing our first instance in the structure that is called P1, and it's of type person, which is the structure name. Then we are having the John Doe, for example, as the name, the age, and the salary. And then we are declaring a pointer of the person data type, and we are having the address of the first instance assigned to this pointer. So this is how we are having this pointer pointing at the first instance of this structure. Then we are going to, using the pointer, we are going to print out the data that is stored in the first instance of this structure. In order to do that, to access the name, we are having the pointer name, which is ptr, and then the assignment sign, and then the name. We are having ptr and the age, ptr and salary. Basically, this is how we can access the different elements of the first instance. So basically, we are having the pointer ptr arrow name, pointer ptr arrow age, and pointer ptr arrow salary to access the elements of the first instance. So let me run. So when we are running, we see that using a pointer, we can print out and access the elements of the first instance. In order to make a review, we are having the structure here. We are having the first instance here initialized as to be the first instance of the structure. It's called P1. It's of person data type, which is the name of our structure. And then we are having the information being inserted, John Doe 30 and the salary. Then in order to declare and initialize a pointer, we are having pointer, and before that, also previously, we were having like a pointer, something like this, pointer 2. Then we were assigning, for example, the address of one another element. So int a equals 10, for example. And here we are having the address of a being inserted into this pointer. So previously, when we were having one variable of the integer type, we were having it declared and initialized like that, and we were having a pointer that was pointing at this element. So it was of the same type, and we were assigning the address of this integer to the pointer. Similarly, here our pointer is of the same data type as our instance here, which is of the person data type, and we are assigning the address of the first instance, which is the P1. So the address of P1 is assigned to this pointer. And then we are having, in order to access the elements of P1. We are having the pointer PTR, arrow name to access the name, arrow age to access the age, and arrow salary to access the salary. Basically, this is how a pointer can do the job for us. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture. In this video, we would like to write a program that demonstrates passing a structure using a call by reference to a function and modifies the salary of the first instance. To do that, we are here declaring one structure that is called person. It is including three variables called name, age, and salary of a string, int, and float types respectively. Then we are having our main function here. In the main function, we are initializing the first instance of the structure person. So the name of this first instance is P1, and we are having the name as the first input, then the age as the second input, and the salary as the third one. So the first instance is now initialized using this line of code. And now that we have a structure declared and an instance that is initialized, we would like to pass this instance and this structure to a function using a call by reference, and then ask the function to do the modification on the salary on this instance. So this salary here, this is the third element, which is here also the third element, needs to be modified. In order to modify this one, we need to define a new function, and this function is, the name of the function is update salary. It's a void type, so it's not going to return anything, and it has two arguments, so we can pass two arguments to this function. And the first argument is separated by a comma from the second argument. The first argument is the instance of the structure person that can be passed to this function, and because it's a call by reference, we can see the and sign here. And it is important to do the call by reference because we need to modify the salary, and in order to directly modify the salary, we need to pass the values by reference, or we can basically mention that the name is called by reference. It means that when we do the call by reference, the function is going to have access to the original address of where the variable is stored in the memory, and it can directly start modifying that original number. However, we have a call by value as well. That is not the lesson of this video, but as a reminder, I'm saying that we have the call by value as well. In call by value, we are not giving the address of the original variable, but we are sending a copy of the original variable, and whatever that is done in the function is done on the copied variable, not on the original one. Therefore, the changes are only valid within the body of the function and not in the int main function. But because we want to do the modification of the salary in the main function and see the instance being modified in the structure, we need to use a call by reference. So back to this function. This function is having two arguments. The first one is the instance of the person structure, and the second one is a float. And when we are calling this function is getting, like here we're calling the function, we are saying that before the increment, we are printing out the salary of the instance one, which is 50,000 approximately. And we want to access, if we want to access this salary, we simply type down the name of the instance, which is p1 dot salary, the third element of the structure, and it is being printed here. Then we are calling the update salary function. So this is the update salary function. As we mentioned, it's a void type, and it is accepting two arguments. So the first one separated by a comma from the second one. Okay, so here we are passing the first instance as the first argument of this function. So the first instance that is declared here and initialized here is being passed to this function. So this function is going to do something with the first instance. We could have 10 instances. So now we are modifying the first instance, and what we are going to do is we are adding the number. So we would like to ask this function to modify the salary and increase the salary by 5,000. In order to do that, we type down the incremental value that we would like to modify in the second argument of this function. And what basically this function is going to do, it is going to take the instance and also the value that we would like to increase. Then it is going to access the amount of stored salary in the instance that is being passed. So we are passing instance 1, which is P1 here. So the name of that is P here. So P.salary is accessing the salary of the first instance because the first instance is being passed. If we were passing the second instance, it was going to have access to the salary of the second instance. So it is accessing the P.salary, the salary of the past instance, and it is incrementing its value that is passed, which is this number, this float number, which is 5,000 in our case. Basically, when we're calling this function modifies the salary and increase the salary by 5,000. So this line is like this: P.salary equals P.salary plus increment. Okay, so we are saying that the new P.salary is the old P.salary, which was 50,000.5 plus the 5,000 that we are passing here, and the output will be calculated by the computer. So here we are passing the first instance to review, and we are asking to increase the value of the salary by 5,000. So this line equals this line of code. So either way, it's correct. It depends on you. So when we are having P.salary plus equal increment, it means that we are having the calculation for the new P.salary equals P.salary plus increment. And P.salary, it is already 50,000.5, which is here. And then the increment value is 5,000 because we are passing the 5,000 as the second argument, which is here and which is here. So it will be 5,000 here, and the final salary would be this number, and it is modifying. And then we are, after incrementing, again printing out the salary of the instance 1, which is P1, to see if the modification is done correctly or not. So let me run the code. Okay, great. Now we are seeing that before increment, the salary is being printed. The salary is this number, which is exactly this number that we initialized in the instance 1, P1. And then we are calling the function. So we are passing the first instance, and we are mentioning that the incremental value should be 5,000. So we are passing the first instance and the 5,000 here, and we are saying whatever the value of the salary is, increase it by 5,000 using this line, or we can write it down like this line. Okay, and then doing the calculation, we will see that it was already 50,000.5, and it is the 5,000 is added to that value, and the final result would be this number. And after this part of the code execution is finished, the program is going to execute this line, cout after increment, which is this part, and it is going to print out the updated salary of the first instance, which will be 50,000.5. So we see that we wrote a program that we used call by reference to pass a structure to a function, and the function modifies the salary of the first instance. We could have different instances here as well and call the second instance, for example. So we could have, for example, the instance 2 here, for example. The name could be, for example, Reza Shaheen. The age could be 33 and the salary could be 10,000. And then here I could write down before increment second person, and then p2 dot salary and then we are having the update salary. So I'm calling the function, I'm saying p2, and then I'm saying 200. Okay, and then we are having the after increment second person. We are having p2 dot salary and L. So if I run this code, so here I initialized a second instance. The name of the person is Reza Shaheen. The age is 33 and the salary is 10,000. So now we would like to print out the salary of this second instance before any modification. So the salary is being printed here. We expect to see 10,000. Then we are calling the function. We are passing the instance 2, and then we are asking to increase the salary by 200. So we are passing the instance 2 and increasing the salary by 200. So the salary second person. So the salary was already equal 10,000, and then we are adding 200 to it. So it is going to be 10,200 now. So it is going to calculate the new salary, and then it is going to print the after increment second person salary, and we're going to run the code to see how it works. Okay, great. So now we see that here we initialized the second instance. We are writing down before increment second person and printing out the salary, which is 10,000. And then we are calling the function, passing the instance 2 and the incremental value, which is 200. And after that, when the modification is done in this function, we are saying that after increment second person, and then we're printing out the second person salary, which is 10,200. And we see that the function works very well. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture. In today's lecture, we would like to learn about how to use an array of structures. So we would like to write a program that demonstrates an array of structures. To do that, we are having our structure here and we are having the int main function here. In the previous video, we learned how to declare one structure just exactly like this one here. And we learned how we can initialize and insert data in this structure one by one. But if our data is huge and there are a lot of people that we would like to insert them, there is a lot of data that we would like to insert in the structure, it would be a bit difficult to insert them one by one. In order to do that, it's easier to use an array if we prefer arrays. So we can have an array, and then using one array, we insert all the data that we would like to have in our structure. So our structure name is person. It is having 3 variables. The name of the first variable is name, and it's of a string type. The second variable is age, it's of integer type, and the third one name is salary and it's of float type. So this is how we are basically declaring our structure. And here we are inserting data in the structure using an array. So the name of the structure is person and the name of the array is people. So people is of person type because it is having the data being inserted for the structure, just like the previous video that we learned. So people is of person data type, and we are writing down the size of the array when we are declaring it. So this we know from before. And here are the elements of the array. So the first element in the first line separated by a comma from the second element, and the second element is also separated by a comma from the third element. So these are the starting and ending point of our array as well. To insert data, just like the previous video, we are going to have the name first. So, and it is in the quotation because it's of a string type. Then we are having the age. So the age we are having as the second element, and then the salary we are having it right here. So here we insert three data in our structure using an array. But in order to show it, we need to, because it's an array, we need a for loop to iterate over all the elements of the array. In order to do that, you don't need to print the data separately as well. So previously we were separately printing the data of different people that their corresponding data were stored in the structure. So if you remember, for example, previously I was writing down cout, for example, p1.name, and then cout, for example, p1.age, so one by one, I was doing it one by one, cout p1.salary, and then again for the second person, I was having p2.name, and I was having again here cout p2.age, and etc. So it was very hard to print everything when we are having a huge data stored in the structure. So if you would like, you can have a for loop to print everything. And here, because we are having an array, we must use a for loop. So previously, if you were having a data like that, it was very hard to access them because you had to print them out one by one. You could also use a for loop if you wanted, but here, because it's an array, everything is inserted directly in one array. All the data is inserted and it's not one by one, and also the printing is not one by one. Everything is done using a for loop. So we are having a for loop. I is initialized, that starts from 0, and it is going to continue as long as I is lower than 3, and we are going to increment the value of I one by one. Then here we are having, this part is the loop part. Then we are having the data being printed, so person, name, age, and salary. So we would like to say person 1, person 2, person 3, because I starts from 0. We are having I plus 1, so we don't have in the output person 0, person 1, and person 2. We are going to have person 1, person 2, person 3, because when I equals 0, 0 plus 1 is person 1, 1 plus 1 person 2, and 2 plus 1 person 3. This is how it is more beautiful to have it this way instead of having person 0, person 1, and person 2. Then, in order to access the elements of the array that are stored in the structure, we're going to have the name, and then we are having people, and people is the name of the array, and then the ith element dot name, ith element dot age, and ith element dot salary. So when let me type it down here. So for the first time I equals 0, it means that it is going to print person 1, because person 0 plus 1, which means that it is going to print out person 1, because I is 0 and we are adding 1, so person 1, the information is being printed. So, and we are going to next line. Then it is going to have the name being printed, so the name and then people 0 dot name people 0 dot age people 0 dot salary. We are having this, basically these three lines are having this information because I equals 0 in the first iteration I'm talking about. So it means that in the array called people, the ith element, which is the first one is 0, means that it is talking about the first element name, the first element age, and the first element salary. So the first element name, the first element age, and the first element salary is this line. So it is going to print out Alice for us and Alice information. And then I equals 1. We are having the print person 1 plus 1. It means that we are talking about person 2. Name, it's people 1 dot name, people 1 dot age, and people 1 dot salary. Okay, so it means that for the second person, access the second element of the people array name, which is Bob, and age, which is 28, and the salary of the second element of the array people, which is 45,000. Basically, we're accessing this one. And then finally, when I equals 2, we are having person 2 plus 1. It means that we are talking about person number 3, then name, people 2 dot name, people 2 dot age, and people 2 dot salary. So it means that access the third element of the array people. It is written 2, but why am I saying that it's the third element? Because I started from 0. So this is the first element, the second element, and the third element. So the third element of the array people name, which is Charlie, then its age, which is 35, and the salary, which is 55,000. Basically, we are accessing the different people's information using a for loop when we are declaring everything with an array. So let me run the code. So here, as you see, the data that is stored is exactly like that, the one that we inserted here. Basically, using this for loop, we are showing the information stored in the structure. It is printing out, as we predicted here, printing out person 1, and the name is printed here, which is Alice, the first one, the age and the salary, Then you're having person number 2 here, exactly like we wanted here, Bob, age and salary. Bob is 28 years old and 45,000 is his salary. Then person number 3, we are having Charlie, and then age is 35 and 55,000 is the salary of this person. So we learned in this video how to insert data in one structure using an array, and how to print out the stored data using an array, how to print the data that is stored using a for loop when the data is stored in the structure using an array. Thank you for watching.